Okay, we're continuing with quotes in alphabetical order. The next person is Phyllis McGinley, and she's sort of the original trad wife, okay, from the 1950s and the 1960s. She was a housewife, but she was also a poet, and she became very popular. She also, did a little bit of stuff with Women's Magazine, and the early feminists, sort of hated her and mocked her. She lived from 1905 to 1978. And she was an American, Roman Catholic. I can tell you, I went to Catholic school for part of my childhood. They had great communities. Everybody knew each other. They saw each other at church at all the saints' days and other school festivals and stuff. It was nice. She wrote children's books and poetry. She had grown up on a ranch. She had a lonely childhood. I can tell you that's very characteristic of highly successful, high-achieving people, is they had a lonely childhood. Instead of running around with a bunch of kids acting like an idiot, they started to read a lot because they were bored. The early feminists mocked her for being a housewife, like Sylvia Plath, the feminist writer, said, oh, McGinley is a sellout. And Sylvia Plath, these typical, atheistic, feminist, crazy women, interested in astrology, always arguing with her husband, separates from her husband, depressed most of her life, commits suicide, okay? A typical miserable feminist. And these are the kind of writers that they teach the kids in school. Sylvia Plath, suicide crazy lady. Virginia Woolf, suicide crazy lady. Okay, they don't teach them about somebody like Phyllis McGinley, who was a clever, happy lady. She was proud to be a housewife. She said, yeah, I'm the housewife poet, and I love it. Okay, I'm happy with my husband. I'm happy with my children. I'm happy to have a happy home and a good marriage, okay? She loved the church. She loved raising her family and being married. Like she was a 1940s, 50s, and 60s trad wife. Here's just some of her quotes. Our woman's bodies are shaped to bear children, and our lives are a working out of the process of creation. All of our ambitions, intelligence are beside this great elemental point. Yeah, that's always what it's been. Up until all this birth control in late 1950s, 1960s, women typically had 10 children, okay? When I was a kid, there still were big families. When I was a kid, I would walk out the front door and I would just run down the street, knock on a couple doors. There were lots of families on our block, the block next door, where they had kids, and you could very quick just knock on a couple doors and find a bunch of kids, and you could play, kickball or softball or some other game, hide and go seek. There were lots of kids all over the place. Nowadays, kids are sparse. Every family has only one kid, 2 kids, 1.5 kids. You got to drive your kid 20 minutes to a play date to see a friend. And then nowadays it's even worse. They got all the cell phones, endless text message and video games, stupidity. Okay, Phyllis McGinley continues. Those wearing tolerance for a label call others intolerable. Yeah, that's exactly how it is. Okay, she says women are the fulfilled sex. Through our children we are able to produce our own immortality. So we lack the divine restlessness which sends men charging off in pursuit of fame or fortune, or some imagined utopia. That's why we number so few geniuses among us. Yeah, geniuses are a lot more common than men. I mean, everybody's known that. That's obvious. Just open a book. That's been obvious since the beginning of recorded history, okay? A lot of women got high IQs. They're real smart, but they're usually busy taking care of kids. And I can just tell you, like a typical conversation with a lady female doctor when I was a younger man. I was preparing a talk, and I always, put a lot of time into my talks back in those days. I was real ambitious. And she's like, why do you spend so much time on your presentation? No one cares about your stupid presentation. You're such a typical man, always trying to show off and be a big shot. A woman doesn't care. A woman just wants to survive. And I'm like, easy for you to say. This lady, by the way, was a Super Fox, 10 out of 10, gorgeous female. So, she's got guys chasing her around. She knows she can get some chump guy like myself to pay all her bills, okay? She doesn't really have to worry about being great at anything, all right? Whereas I'm a guy, not that tall, going bald. Okay, I better be good at something or make some money, or I'm never going to get a woman in my bed, okay? It's just how it is. It's not right or wrong. It's just how it is, okay? And the female body is designed for having babies. She's got the breast to breastfeed the kid. She's got the hips to show a man when she's not pregnant. She's fertile. She's got, the pelvis to deliver a baby. She's got small shoulders because it'd be, you know, they worried about starving to death, all our ancestors up until recent times. So it didn't make sense for her to have a big, bulky upper body. All she needs is enough strength to control those sons until they're about 6th or 7th grade age. You know, what is that? About, you know, 12 to 14 years of age. And then they go off with the men. That's how it's always been for thousands and thousands of generations. Not this most recent brief blip in history of birth control pill and feminism and all this other stuff, which is coming to an end anyways. We're going back to becoming third world. So, okay, a couple more quotes by Phyllis McGinley. This is the gist of what I know. Give advice and buy a foe. She wrote lots of clever little rhymes and poems like that. She's real popular in the women's journals and stuff like that. You saw she was on the cover of Time magazine. She says, a bookworm in bed with a new novel and a good reading lamp is as much prepared for pleasure as a pretty girl at a college dance. Okay. I'm a middle bracket person with a middle bracket spouse, and we live together in a middle bracket house. We've a fair to middling family. We take the middle view, so we're mana sent from heaven to internal revenue. Yep, the wage producers, taxpayers, the middle class. Okay, so that's Phyllis McGinley, the trad wife of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s.